Are you good? All right, so 1902, we have a quorum. We can get started. Welcome everyone. All right, first of all, we're going to stand up for pledge of allegiance. Fourth, you count the right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Public comment? Street time.
I love the spontaneous Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
We're like, oh wait. We had a legislative breakfast this morning. We started with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then the middle school came in and they started their announcement, so everybody's back up saying the Pledge of Allegiance again. So we're all very concerned that we didn't say the pledge enough today. So it was kind of funny though. Everybody just like immediately stand up and just like, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 18th board meeting.
So moved.
Second. Name second. All in favor, or any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Buell, do you have any correspondence or communications at this point?
I don't officially, I just want to, of course, add one quick note. We have 8 students from Eastern Connecticut State University that are going to be doing either a student teaching opportunity or clinical experience. So student teaching is a much bigger commitment, but I'm really pleased to see that collaboration with Eastern expanding, and our teachers having that opportunity to have college students in, and we can support those college students as they are preparing to enter the field. So any connection we can build with universities, I'm pleased to do. So it's nice.
And Brooklyn's Best.
Who's best? Let's just pull it up here. I think I have the wrong list on that.
I was gonna say, isn't that last month?
Yes, but if you pull the budget up, you'll see Brooklyn's Best. So the link is incorrect. So yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So under Brooklyn's Best, when I send the email out to the principals, I say, okay, Brooklyn's Best. And they're like, didn't we just give that to you? Between the Christmas break and it just felt like it came up quick. But the elementary school is excited. There's a lot of excitement with the kids, planning for the Invention Convention. I think it's the first time it's been offered at the elementary level, and so Mr. Kader, I'm sure with some help from other teachers, is helping to coordinate that. And so there are students at all levels preparing to enter into the Invention Convention. So about 50 students participated. Mr. Kader did do a webinar for parents, and it was posted on the PTO Facebook page.
It was fun.
Was it? Did you see it?
Yeah, I was there.
So yeah, so it's kind of neat to use that technology and have that opportunity to kind of reach more parents. Universal screens, the STAR assessment and other teacher administrative assessments are underway, and they're beginning to see some nice growth from the students. We'll be getting that report next month. So the principals will be back next month and share the progress reports on the universal screen. The dental van and the Lions Club vision screening has occurred. We've had the mobile dental van out there for a few days in the screening. Such a great opportunity for families. Even if families that have an outside dentist, they can still use this dentist and they don't have to miss work. Their kids can get walked to the dental van, they get their treatments there. So it's a nice opportunity for families. They do a great job. I've been in a couple times while they're actually working on kids, and all the kids seem to be very comfortable. They seem very comfortable out there. It's a nice opportunity. At the middle school, students are working hard on their production of Into the Woods. Save the date, March 22nd and 23rd. So it's a Friday and Saturday performance. And I'm looking forward to seeing them put that show on. Language arts teachers observed the workshop model lessons in grade 5. They went to Mansfield and observed some teachers there. it's that nice opportunity to share and learn from other teachers, what other communities are doing. Some communities are further along with this curriculum than we are, so it's nice for them to go and do that. Brooklyn cheerleaders, I want to celebrate them. It's the first time in a long time that we've had a group, an excellent group of students who cheer at the home teams, at the home games. So boys or girls, they cheer in between, they get it out at halftime, they do a little performance. So with Mr. Etchinson's help, we're going to post it to the little video clip to the blog of them cheering. Very cute. And they worked really hard at it. So girls basketball and boys basketball, tremendous season again. Last year they were undefeated, both boys and girls. This year the girls are still undefeated, currently 9-0 and 7-0 in the division, and the boys are 8-1. So really outstanding teams. So yeah, it's great.
Current budget balance.
You might not be able to see that. It is in the folder actually though, if you did want to go to it. So if you flip out to the folder, no, I'm sorry, not the paper folder, the electronic folder. I'm thinking, what are y'all looking at?
Right. Sorry, I went to finance last week.
So it is in the electronic folder, and so it is an up-to-date report. One of the things that I will just share is that we do have change in staff in our business office, both at the school level and the town level. So although the wheels are moving, they're moving a little slower than they were. So I know that we have some outstanding bills that are waiting to go out. So so I would say this is not as current as I know we want to be. So
I realize there are personnel shortages and probably some difficulties in keeping this up to date, but there are a number of pretty puzzling entries in this. In fact, just about every entry in which this appears to be a negative balance has some questions that can't be understood from looking at this spreadsheet. For example, the additional compensation of teachers only budgeted for $30,000. You spent $28,000 already, but you have an encumbrance of more than the original budget. Yeah, $50 more than the original budget.
I can explain that one to you if
Okay.
you want. Do you want me to intervene?
Yeah.
Okay. So almost immediately I discovered that line was underfunded. And I did it. I calculated, so that line is what is used to pay stipends for teachers. So athletics and the drama club, and it was just an error. I know that in the budget moving forward, it's about $50,000. So I knew when we started to encumber the salary stipends that I was off. So I'm not quite sure how, other than to say that I made an error.
And how do you propose to encumber an amount greater than the original budget? Do you have a place that it's coming from?
Yes, we'll need to transfer money down to that.
Okay, thank you. Health and dental insurance, budgeted for $1.6 million, already spent $1,260,000,
Yeah.
encumbering $1,700,000.
So we talked about that, I think, I don't know if it was last month or the month before. Back before some staffing changes, I said, okay, this obviously is not correct, and it is not correct. The original budgeted amount is still appropriate. What happened is when we changed the way, so I think it's in iVision, the accounting software. What is happening is that we had budgeted an amount, and then we started doing deductions, employee deductions, and so I think somehow it's doubling up, and I have not been able to clean that one up yet. But I know that we will not go in the negative on that one.
Okay, thank you. Workers' comp, budgeted 75,000, already spent 63,000, encumbering 21,000.
Those are legitimate.
I'm sorry?
That's just legitimate. You can only anticipate what you think you're gonna
Okay,
do.
so it was not under budgeted, but it's going to be over expended.
I believe so. I will follow up though for you.
Professional educational services budgeted 117, spent 100,000, encumbering $84,000.
I'll check on that one for you too.
Well, communications is screwed up, but the dollar amounts are low, so let's not waste time on that. Services purchased from another something or other, budgeted at 34,000, spent 26, almost 27,000, encumbering 22,300.
I'll follow up with you on that.
And I'll just name these others
Keep going,
instead of rattling off the numbers. Yeah, periodicals, it's a small amount of money, although it's anticipated to be overexpended by 100%. Supplies for technology anticipated to be overexpended by 230,000%.
That was that's a error that aligns to some of the capital funds that should have been used and were not used. So that is a correction that had been requested probably in October, November, maybe even again in December. So that's a coordination with the town.
So again, I'm not trying to give you a hard time because I know you're short on help, but at this point, with so many accounts anticipated to be overexpended by 100 to 300%, it seems to me it's time for some explanation of how the ship is going to right before the end of the
I
year.
would agree with you.
Thank you.
Current grant report.
The current grant report is still sort of on track. The way the grant works is that the state holds grant money. We ask the state for a certain drawdown once a month. And I can tell you that that drawdown has not occurred on as regular basis as it should have. Again, that's an area that needs to be addressed. I think we have a little bit of time to correct that. That is on my list of things that does need some attention. But, it's accounted for, most of it's accounted for. How it's going to be spent, it's just a matter of drawing it down.
So the high school tuition report, that's unchanged from December.
It's unchanged, so it's just not been updated. No expenditure changes. And what do you have?
I was just gonna say, I know that you don't have staff in the office, but the numbers don't seem like they total properly.
So let's see what you have.
Like Woodstock, 17, 18, 167, 18, 19, 167, it should be 180. And then even the nets at the bottom.
So one of the things that, so I've changed the template as we move into next year. And so last month when we realized that we are being billed on the 167, so the spreadsheet is calculated based on the tuition line. So the ones,
so you're using the previous year's number.
Right.
I got you.
but even though the enrollment is 180, so what I
Right.
did is down below, it says not the actually 180, 181. And so we had a discussion, maybe it was a November meeting, when we talked about how we're being billed. So Woodstock Academy, we get billed based on
Previous year.
previous year enrollment.
Okay,
Only we
That
get
makes
billed based on the current year enrollment.
all right.
So I tried to add that to the spreadsheet so that you can read it, so people will be able to reference that.
Okay.
But I cleaned it up for and I can plan this for next month.
See it, that's all.
I can't, I
You
don't know
know,
how anybody can see this, I'm trying to make it bigger and it's not working.
What's your little thing? Let's see, you need the mouse. Oh, there you go. There.
Plus that
Make
line.
it bigger,
Yes.
make it bigger.
Yeah,
There
but see,
you
no, but
go.
this number here is not that. If you add these numbers, that's 180. If you add those numbers, it's 167.
Right.
But
Okay,
there is a
that's-
footnote, I
that's-
understand.
So maybe the footnote needs to be like above the tuition line. We say.
It's
this
fine,
is
no,
going
no,
toward-
now that I can see
Now
the
that-
footnote, I'm good.
Okay. I think you can see the small print. You got the plus button now? You're
I have to do
right.
it mine
Thank
too.
you.
Already enlarged my
I'm trying
screen.
to do this, that's what I do online.
See, they find me with my mouse. That's funny now. All right, enrollment report. And this is the same
It's just
from.
not updated, that's all.
That's even better.
It's
Oh my god. You can
It's
do it on
small?
the pad. I didn't know that. I
Oh,
like mine has to do the screen. Now I'm gonna try the pad.
we're entertaining the board members with our.
You really are.
See, we need one of the ones in the. Sorry.
All
right, so
can I just do it on my phone?
So these numbers will be updated for for the February
Okay.
meeting.
All right, representatives to other committees. Anything from recreation?
No, except, I thought Melissa was gonna switch to recreation, and somebody
Yes.
needs to notify the town hall, because I got the agenda this week.
Okay. We will definitely. I will let Melissa, the other Melissa know. Town Melissa versus Board of Ed Melissa, yeah. Board of Finance met last week. Interesting meeting. Lots of talk about budget and audits and accounting and very interesting things that are going on in the town side. Jeff, I don't know how much you want to elaborate further or.
Well, just the bottom line is that it's become obvious that we need more people in the finance function in town government. And when I say town government, I include the finance function in the schools. The whole finance function of municipal government in Brooklyn needs to have more people. So we have 2 people that are no longer with us that need to be replaced, and the current projection is that we need to add 2 more people in next year's budget to establish a minimally adequate finance department, and probably both of those people ought to be graduate accountants or very highly experienced people that don't have a degree in accounting.
So something that I wanted to pass out, that Patty was at the Board of Finance meeting last week and presented a draft. This is just a thought process of what Jeff is referring to as far as what a potential shared services could look like, as far as combining those services from the town and the school side to try and prevent some of the duplication of, everybody's got a payroll person, everybody's got a HR, like trying to figure out. So this was just a complete draft, not approved by the Board of Finance, so for your review as well, of just how we might go forward, the possibility of going forward. So there's definitely some discussion that has to be going on that, but, if you want to talk.
Sure. So the idea behind this is that we have a person that does payroll, does insurance, does other employee benefits, does the onboarding of staff. Then we have people that they pay some bills and they count the milk money, and so we have people that do multiple tasks. And one of the challenges of that is you get interrupted. You're just about entering someone's insurance information in, and then you get interrupted for some other important task, and then maybe you return to that task, and it's difficult. And so, and if I only touch insurance once at the beginning of the year when it's very busy, and then 3 or 4 times as new staff come in or insurance changes, you don't ever become an expert at that because you're, doing the payroll in between. And so we talked about the fact that there are duplication of services. So there's payroll on the town side and payroll on the school side. If you're the payroll person, you become the payroll expert and you understand all the functions associated with payroll. That becomes the primary responsibility of your job. You're not also onboarding and the new sub and handing out paperwork to those people and posting the minutes to the whatever. So we talked about trying to kind of allow people to become more proficient and efficient at their function. And so if we shared services with the town, would that lead us to creating more efficient services for our constituents, our employees? So so this conversation has occurred. There was some conversation prior to the staffing changes. So as we know, longtime employee Denise Giza has resigned her position here. A lot of experience in doing a lot of these different functions, and then the business manager that is shared between the town and the board has also left. And so in the changing of positions, it allows us to think a little bit differently. Maybe we should restructure how we do the work to achieve higher efficiency and proficiency. So, and the accuracy is kind of the most important piece. So that's the conversation that we're having, and I think it's critical right now that we have this conversation on the board of finance side, through the town, through the board, through the schools. So I think in theory there are some pieces that we need to get through to get here, to get to this point. Some of which are union conversations, and then just the physical structure, the location, who's responsible. So, so this was just a draft of a kind of a capture of a conversation that multiple conversations that we've had. I'll put this copy back there in case anybody wants to look at that.
Does anybody have any initial questions or conversations about that?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. So, is there an anticipated timeframe? Did they start looking already? Or
Yeah.
they're already actively?
Some exploration of who's available and one or the other. One of the problems is that we have not been very successful in recruiting people to serve in municipal government who have applicable finance training or experience. And I don't think it's for lack of offering
Good
sufficient
compensation.
salary. I think for relatively new accounting graduates, the idea of getting into some pigeonhole in some small municipal government isn't particularly attractive. And beyond that, to find someone who's really capable to decide to pigeonhole themselves that way is nearly impossible. So that's the problem. I think, going back to the beginning, the fundamental problem is that Brooklyn has a finance organization, if you'd like to call it that, that's staffed and organized for a 4,000 population community, and we're an 8,200 population community. We just have not grown that function the way it should, the way we should have, and now we're really suffering, and there doesn't seem to be any immediate solution available. So I'm really pleased that Rick Ives and Mrs. Buell are working together on this problem. And we'll all have to see how it develops.
There's a number of towns in this area that are looking for finance directors and different personnel within the municipal side of things. Has there been any discussion or outreach to maybe the RESC in terms of, I know that we've talked about getting some interim help that way, but in terms of doing a, collaborative type search.
So-
There has
Yes.
been some discussion with Pomfret, actually, there's another dimension to this, and that is that we need to find people who are experienced with or can very rapidly learn our accounting software system. And, since Pomfret and Brookman have the same software system, it's very desirable to consider collaborating with them. We have replaced one of the vacancies with a graduate accountant who is learning as quickly as she can our software system, so that's a plus. And the fact that she's able to learn it, I guess, is hopeful.
Yeah, I was surprised how long it took the transition and how many training hours they actually had to have. For
And not-
people already doing our accounting and then,
Pretty surprising that it took that long to not learn the system. Well, that's really what happens.
Twice.
So yeah, there's some effort to collaborate with others.
I did, Mr. Ives and I both met with, an EastCon rep who came out, so their business manager person and like an HR person. So, we did meet with EastCon and, we talked about, so that's a service that EastCon's trying to offer is providing staff. And so because we need a full-time person, it's not like we can buy a portion of a person. But, so we did have the conversation and they said, they would be happy to help us search, to help try to find somebody. Really, we drilled down into what we were looking for, probably, someone with strong accounting, background. And, so they're looking, and so we'll be looking too. So, we kind of dusted off the job description that we used last time, trying to adjust that to maybe based on what we learned, and is there anything different that we need to do? So I spoke to Mr. Ives today about it. We met with EastCon last week, so we're actively moving.
Anyone else have any initial questions or? Anything from EastCon?
Yes, we met last night, and probably the big news is that Adult Ed has been awarded a $500,000 grant from Walmart. And that is an 18-month grant for its largest grant they've ever received in Adult Ed. And it's about putting some money into those that are underemployed. So helping people that are working 3-4 jobs, to put food on the table, help them build the skills they need to get, better jobs, better paying jobs. So that framework and all of that will build out over the next few months, but that was the big news.
no one's gonna wanna work at Walmart.
Another thing that we spent a lot of time talking about was there was this perception, and I guess on the CAP side, there was some comments made about, let's push things to the RESC because there were 250 people in the SD, the State Department of Ed, and now there's 100 or so in the State Department of Ed. So let's start pushing more work to the regional education service centers. That's what they were put in place to do, and that's where the state funding goes. And the RESC Alliance, all the rest throughout the state of Connecticut went back and did some work, and Gary Mala reported last night that the funding that EastCon currently receives from the state is 13% of what they need. The rest of it is fee for service, which brings to light a whole new thing in terms of, what are school districts now paying for fee for service. So when you reach out to EastCon, do you know when you ask for help what you'll be paying? So EastCon's working very hard on coming up with a model to be able to explain to you, when you reach out for services, no matter what they are, what that looks like in terms of money. I know at one point in time, it was a per pupil fee that every district was charged, and so they're trying to work that through. And Sharon,
Is that a significant decrease?
oh yeah, significant. From, I think, what did he say, 1983 was when the RESC were formed, or 84? And the funding, of course, has just declined. But some of the shared services things that they're doing, the EastCon is working with the other Rest, Learn, and Crack, and the others around the state to share services. So, for example, Crack is very good at doing procurement services. So they're partnering with EastCon to roll out something that is a function of procurement services available to all districts versus, I'm EastCon and I'm good at helping with charter bus services and doing e-chip and insurance, and I'm Crack and I'm good at procurement. Oh, well, EastCon does that too. So they're trying to say, which rests are good at which verticals, and then aligning it there instead of everyone overlapping. So I like that they're doing that. Food services, as you know, that's more and more, and it seems from the breakfast this morning that that's going very well. And then finance services has been a big thing, working with John Paskowski and getting people in to help with that. So those are the big things.
Woodstock Academy.
Woodstock Academy has predominantly been about budgets, about the financial consultant that we brought in to do an overview of where are we now and where do we need to be, and merging the two budgets between the operating budget and the international program, the boarding student budget, and what that needs to look like. So we spent a lot of time at the retreat in December working on that, making progress. You have numbers, I know, for tuition. Yeah.
We had a budget workshop earlier this evening, and we just started to, we had an initial presentation from the building heads and departments, and just starting to go over that. So kind of at the higher level now, and as we progress into next month, we'll start to get into some numbers and specifics. But this was really just kind of that first initial overview, and I'd like to thank the administrative staff for staying and presenting to us. I know that there's lots and lots of hours behind that amongst their other daily things that they have to do. So we welcome when they get to come and share good things with us. And I think they've got some great ideas of what they're doing to align the schools going forward, the district, and doing that. Yep.
So our next budget workshop is February 6th, 5:30 to 6:30. It's prior to the next board meeting. The one after that is February. Oh no, there's not a board meeting that day. Sorry, that's just the budget workshop. And then the next meeting is February 27th, which is before the board meeting. So again, 5:30 to 6:30. Very similar to what I did last year. I will post all of our documents to the website. So the presentation that was shared this evening will go to our website, and there'll be a budget questions at brooklynschools.org email. So I will encourage parents, so I'll push out notification to parents and staff members to communicate. If they have any questions, they can share questions, and I'll keep a Q&A on the website again, similar to what we did last year. So that way people can stay current with any of the budget numbers or ideas behind the budget. So to be as transparent as we can and try to keep that communication open. People are certainly welcome to come to those budget workshop meetings. And it really is work. So the board's going to dig into those numbers and talk about what the programming looks like and what that equates to for the budget. But we'll try to keep everyone informed through the website and through an open dialogue through email. Obviously, anybody can call me and come visit too, but just want to provide people access to get their ideas to us.
And the technology committee did meet, or not actually meet.
We did not meet. No.
So the document that was just for review. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So earlier in the year, we went out for a analysis of our systems. We did get a report back from Apex Technology. And so we just had an initial meeting to review that report. So So next we'll take that, so I shared that report with you, just that draft report, but then we'll take it to the technology committee for further kind of questions and answers, and kind of recommendations, so we can consider those recommendations as we move forward. The people that did the analysis, looked at the infrastructure, looked at what the needs are, what the, kind of future is for Brookland, had some strong recommendations about how we can enhance what we have to ensure that any additional technology will be able to actually access and maintain that and without disruption of service to teachers and students. So I think the biggest thing when you move into a one-to-one kind of environment, which we're looking to do at the middle school, is that if the service is intermittent, you might as well not have anything. Because when you plan your lessons and you present the lesson and then the system isn't working properly, you quickly decide that you're not going to do that again. And so you need to have a dependable infrastructure. Our infrastructure is good right now for what we have, but as we tax that system by putting more devices on it and kind of higher level streaming curriculum and technology, then it will become more difficult to maintain that. So there are some recommendations, kind of a first year, second year, third year plan. Not everything not everything needs to be done right away. Everything has a price tag, but I think we'll take it to the technology committee next to kind of hear their input and have them weigh in as we move forward with this budget process as we move into next year.
Transportation committee met to discuss some of the traffic flow.
We did. You have, I don't know
I
which
know
ones you have. You have the proposed.
I have all of the notes that were handed in, and I left those up there in case you
Right, I
wanted.
saw those.
I was just real, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's
So we had,
Sorry.
prior to the
That's
meeting,
for me.
Patty had put out a request for emails of anybody who couldn't make it to the meeting. So, these are,
They're all this. They're
this is the
all-
current ones.
Yes.
Yeah. and the
1, 2,
proposed. And
3.
I have
Okay. I wasn't sure if you needed them or not.
proposed changes. Okay, so anyone would like to look at those, but what a lot of things that came up,
Are you gonna build a tunnel underground?
a lot of things that came up were, big projects, like we need to move the playscape and bring people into the front yard, and we need to move all the play equipment to the back, and we need to build new parking lots and driveways, and obviously cost money and take time. So what we were talking about is maybe we need to separate out, there's some short-term safety issues that we could address versus some maybe long-term projects. So there's some proposals that are out here. I have a couple, this is,
I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but has anybody asked, why don't you just put your kids on the bus?
well, we did, I was talking to Tony today, I'm like, there's always, would you get on the bus?
No, I mean, seriously, have we asked parents, why don't you put your kids on the bus?
Well, we did that, Joan, if you remember when we had the bus contracts, we got the input from the PAC. And
But
there,
that was when we were going through M&J turnover change from
but it
first
was
student.
but the biggest number one reason that the parents didn't was because the buses didn't run on time.
Right,
And
but
I'm
how
sad to
that,
say, the buses are still not running on time. They are varied greatly from day to day.
and you think that's what the problem is?
Well,
why
I think
people-
it doesn't help. So,
But have we asked recently?
what's that? Have we asked recently?
Yeah.
No, we have not. I don't think, unless you have, no one's had a conversation. Things have settled down. MRJ's not all up in arms. We're not likely to not get any bids this, if we go out for rebid. But it is, from personal experience, I can say the buses run 10 or 15 minute variation, 20 minutes. And I don't know how if you leave the bus garage at the same time every day, how you get off by that much time, that does not make sense.
It's probably a lot related to, drivers being a shortage area, like crisis mode shortage area. Yeah, you can't
But
hire
there's still,
drivers. Nobody can hire
but there's
drivers.
still a route, and somebody drives that route, and it should be at the same time.
But I think that's what I'm saying. The problem is inconsistency with the drivers because.
No, these are the same drivers.
Yeah?
It's just, I don't know, it's not a
Okay, never mind.
priority.
Sorry.
It's not a priority, it's kind of a big issue for parents when they can't see if the bus is already coming or not.
So, but aren't they sitting in the parent drop-off? I'm just playing devil's advocate.
They are.
Aren't you
from-
sitting in the
from
parent
2
drop-off
o'clock.
and pickup line for longer than you would have been waiting
Is
for
that-
the bus?
is it
No.
about 2:30? Between 2 and 2:30.
Don't let me, when I
Okay.
picked up my kid, I was the one that was rolling at 3:25,
Right, because why would you
like
sit
the
there?
last car.
So anyway, this is our current, anyone who's interested in looking, this is our current plan. This is a
I'm interested.
proposal. There's another one of those over here. This is a proposal which I have an issue with because it has people exiting where people should be entering. This is a proposal that came in a month ago or so from a parent. I have several of those. I actually took it out and make my copy machine copy the color.
So blue is what we do now and yellow is, blue is
This
blue and
is
yellow.
the bus.
Yellows are buses.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what I did with these. I hand do this too, by the way. I'm not an artist. There you go.
Well, you did a fabulous job.
So, I didn't hand draw them. We have blanks. If anyone has ideas, we're still collecting ideas from people. So if anyone has an
So how
idea,
many proposals do you have? Can you summarize succinctly?
how many
Just
proposals do we
what
have?
would be, what's short-term
Well,
proposals?
what the objective, we
make
have 2 objectives. One is to get the parents and the cars off of Louisberry Drive, because that's a town road. And we currently have 2 lanes of traffic exiting and cars crossing to turn into the circle. So the proposal from the parent was to reverse the direction on the circle, and then at least nobody's crossing. And the middle school, and to eliminate people passing on the left, which the gentleman who lives over there has an issue with 2 lanes of traffic coming at him when he's trying to get home. And it's dangerous because you've got cars crossing, you've got cars passing, you've got crisscrossing. So reversing the direction of the circle may be an easy thing to do. And on the proposal I gave you, we have a stop line. So we would stop the traffic prior to the gentleman's driveway, so we're back towards our own property. And I don't know, the only thing I'm not sure is how you would alert the people that it's time to move forward. But the big issue came out that we have school personnel out there and they're at risk for directing traffic.
Taking their life in their hands and their
Causing
husband
accidents.
does.
Yeah.
They're not done.
And then, so the middle school, to prevent those parents from passing all of the cars lined up for the elementary, they would move through the parking lot and pick up their kids and then exit through the middle school driveway. So these, the yellow and green just come down. First the orange, the green and the purplish color, purple being middle school, elementary, they continue. These two parents move around, pick up their kids and then exit through the driveway. Yeah. I mean, you've got to still be careful. Now, if you had to pick up an elementary, you'd have to loop around to get back in this line here. You know, pick
Where
up
would
your-
you go to pick up one? Right, so if you are, so devil's advocate, if you are coming in as a dual school parent, you'd have to do the loop around the cars, go up and pick middle school, then where do you go to loop around to come back
Well,
to?
it's a big
elementary?
parking lot. There's no lines in that. Is that still a parking lot? When we paved it, we never put lines. I mean, people do park
They
there.
don't park during the day, but after, so parents park there to pick up their middle schoolers, and then after school sports, so basketball, it fills up.
So parents literally park and then get out of their car and go up and sign their child out.
Yes.
If we had the loop around, we could have kids just get into the car in the order of it, and then the parents wouldn't be walking through a parking lot where cars are driving. So you got elementary parents coming through, and kids and parents in the parking lot, and
Yes.
I mean, so if, that's a big area, so if you wanted to go to the elementary, you would just go make a circle
Again,
and go back down and get back in line. So pick up your middle school and then turn and then go back.
Sounds like
Well,
a
if there's-
shared
if there's already
services project
issues-
to me.
If there's already issues with cars crisscrossing over here, and then we try to put cars, now you got elementary school cars coming in, and you got middle school cars that have gone and picked up, and now they're trying to merge back in, that's gonna be another
Wow.
issue. If we can't figure it out over here, you know, over in the,
Well, the problem over here, this
Elementary
is,
school.
the biggest problem with this is a town road. And we've sort of been told that, you know, we have to stop doing what we're doing at the town road. Like, you can't block it, you can't have two-way traffic, you can't do that. And the only reason for reversing that circle is to eliminate the crisscrossing. If you ever watch it, there's
Yeah.
somebody coming down, somebody turning in, somebody passing, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a little hairy. This, if, you know, you got eyes, you stop here and you turn if somebody's coming.
that's my feeling. That's another story.
All right, so
Common sense.
yeah,
the
good
common
start
sense
that
factor.
discussion.
And it's working, there's never been an
No, I know,
accident that
yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but it works, but us watching this road. and
No, I got
two
you, yeah,
lanes
yeah,
exit,
that's a different story.
And then occasionally a car that's not familiar will try to turn in there,
Yes.
we've already got two lanes exiting, so. This is probably the movies very dread is probably our biggest concern. The middle school apparently functions fine, doesn't back up, but parents park. So they're walking in the parking lot, because they have to physically go sign their child out.
There's probably less activity because there's less kids and there's kids at stake for school.
It is about even, isn't it? The folks are even, didn't they say
It's
that?
about 50, around 50 kids are picked up at the middle school and probably 60 to 65 at the elementary. Not a big difference, so it's,
They don't have car seats and things. so maybe
Right,
that's the
it's a little
difference.
easier to
It's a little
move them.
easier. But anyway, that's what we were discussing, and we still, and if anybody has any ideas, here's some things, you can draw your own pictures.
I would get one parent per neighborhood.
I also did hear back, just today from, or maybe it was yesterday, from Sil
Holly,
Polly, who had done some study of this property before,
He
and the
did, yeah.
traffic pattern, and so, he's an engineer that works for NECOG, which we belong to, and so we have asked him, and so, he did reach back to me and say, let's set up a time to come in. He said, you know, he's glad because he, is familiar with the property as it is, and, you know, it's my understanding he had some plans or some ideas that we could consider, which I think was considered at one point.
it was,
Um,
yeah, I think he drew that other picture,
yes.
and they talked about making the driveway in front of middle school two-way, which may not be.
And so I will say that there were several parents did share ideas, which was great.
That's great.
Um,
And they're up here, I don't know if you want to read through them, or you can do it at your leisure.
Yeah.
Some of them will create
other
probably
problems.
relatively expensive, development project. Well, one of the parents said, you know, just let the middle school out 5 minutes before the elementary. I'm not sure how much that's gonna alleviate the problem,
Right.
not the problem on School Street, for sure.
So part of it is like the cost to physically design our parking lots versus paying staff, which is a forever cost. If we had to staff people to work longer to cover the dismissal and that sort of thing. You know, you could hold all the kids till all the buses leave and then the parents could pick up the kids, but then you're paying people, you know, hourly rates to stay longer. You know, so there are a lot of different considerations. And so I think when, Sil comes in, I can show him all the options. I did receive one more, I think, last week, and it sounds like maybe you have another kind of cleaned up version, so I can add those options to the list. I think we had 10, I received one more, you have at least one more, right? So, so I think we have a dozen options that people came up with, and so, and we're still open to
And
other
this
ideas.
is for those that didn't make it to the public hearing, we did bring it up in, was it November or December? The end of November? End of November.
Yes.
And, there were not many people at the public hearing, but nobody embraced the idea of us buying that is for sale off of School Street. So, we've got to work with what we've got.
I think it's a great beginning discussion. I think it's good that there's parents involved because I think there's
But they're the ones that are
well,
sitting.
they're the
I mean,
ones
they're out
that sit there, so sometimes, I mean, we might have great plans from engineers from a, engineering perspective, but if you don't sit in
reality,
that
it's not
line,
gonna
it doesn't,
work, but-
doesn't work. So I think, to have those varying opinions is, it's a good start for us.
So anyway, just to, safety issues, and I don't think it's a good use of our administrators to have them standing out in the cold directing traffic.
When we used to, before we had the pattern we have now, we used to have elementary come in through Louisville Drive, down around the back, drop off. Why did we change that?
Because the cars, there wasn't enough holding area, so cars were out on Gorman.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they used to come out, I think of this building or right about here. And there was a proposal that now that the lower level of the third grade's not being used anymore, that could be parent pickup, and the people would come and they would already have their kids and they would only be exiting on Louisville Drive, not using the circle.
They used to come out of the back of pre-K and the back of.
Well, people used to go in and get their kids, so there's no good, you'd have to figure out a loop or something. They could come.
Sometimes money solves problems. It's not unlike the suggestion that we ask parents why they need to pick up their kids. Maybe you could provide the service by charging them.
To pick up
You
their
might be
kids.
quite surprised at how many people decide it's no longer necessary to pick up their kids.
Are you gonna go out there and collect the money? Are you gonna tell them?
Hold the kids hostage.
You can only have your kids. They
I'm
might
sorry,
give
you're
us their
holding their
kids.
child hostage.
There's a
Free of charge, you're
surcharge.
holding my kid hostage, so how many of my kids do you want?
That's right,
You're
they're not
hostage.
saying you can have them.
Is that an hour of your school?
For the child tax? What is that?
Say $50 a month fee to pick up your own kid, that'll slow them down.
I mean, some people do it because they have practice or piano lessons or gymnastics or something, so they wanna get them be with us. Because I did meet, and they're just interesting before on transportation, but I was coming back from Manchester on 2 different occasions, and I got behind a bus going down Route 6 at about 4:20. And it was dark in December, and these kids were getting off, that is late. And I just wondered, where has that bus been?
Some of the charter schools have longer schedules, and so that could be,
Oh, it might not be one of our buses, it stopped at almost every house.
oh, it's in Brooklyn.
Oh, I was in
Was it
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn? I thought you were
I picked it up
still-
at the Hampton Town Line, and I'll tell you how many houses it stops at.
I don't know.
So limousine.
That's interesting.
Might we have to come back that way?
We'll probably continue to work on this a little bit, but, maybe see what still has.
Yeah, I can follow up with the next meeting.
Review of the 2018-20 school calendar.
So in your folder, so we talked about this at the last meeting, but in your folder, you have a copy of the calendar, the 1920. This calendar really does mirror the current school calendar. I'll just share some quick highlights. Staff start the Monday before Labor Day, have 2 days where we're here before the students who start on Wednesday. Preschool traditionally starts on Thursday. So that, nothing has changed there. We go into September, we have the Labor Day. We go into October and we have 1 professional development day on a Friday. And then the next Monday is Columbus Day. When I met with parents last year, they said we like to have those longer holidays. We want our kids in school as much as possible so that we can get them out for summer because they want to spend time with their kids in the summer. But if they're going to have a PD day, they'd like to have it backed up to a holiday so that they can do kind of have some family time. So that was the kind of overwhelming consensus from the parents that shared last year. We go into November, Election Day. This board had talked about not having school on Election Day, so it would be a professional development day. There would be a couple early release days in November. Because Thanksgiving is the last week in November, so Thanksgiving falls on November 28th. We usually have parent conferences after Thanksgiving. So this one comes the week before, so we'll have at least an early release day for some of those parent conferences. So that's a little bit different for the school staff, the teachers, the parents, that it would be before Thanksgiving as opposed to after. we would have that early release day on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We still get a day of school there. Takes us into, we have 3 full solid weeks in December, which is nice, before we go on the holiday break there. So we would have no school from December 23rd, which is a Monday, until January 1st, no school. So it's, it's a week and a half, kind of standard. We come back to school on that Thursday. Now, there are some schools I did give you, for example, the Woodstock Academy. We know that they follow a different kind of schedule because of their so many students that don't live in town. So they have 2 full weeks, but the other schools, Pomfret, Killingly, nobody's really looking at 2 full weeks except for, the residential boarding program. So I understand that. So nothing has changed there for us. In January, just like we had this past week, there's a professional development day on Friday. We have the Monday off. Hopefully we won't have.
Have you considered moving that to February 14th and making that February vacation a little longer? Only because January with snow days and sickness, it seems like the kids never go to school.
We didn't consider that, but it's certainly something we can look at.
Because January it seems chopped up and like you can't even get a full weekend.
Yeah.
So not
Yeah,
February, it can't be as bad. But I just thought.
So it'd be 2 full weeks in, so it'd be, if we move that, the January 17th, that Friday, over to February 14th.
They'd have 5 days off.
Yeah. I would be,
I find January is just one of those months where it seems like the kids are not in school.
Yeah. And just for comparison, we had Friday PD, then Monday was the holiday. Some districts are having school on Friday. They had Monday the holiday and Tuesday was PD. So like Killingly had that, but I don't think it really matters whether it's a Friday or a Monday.
Is there a way we could align it? Because transportation, we had to run our buses for the high school on Friday and then.
So we try, and there are certainly days, so the question is, because Killingly, and you have the Killingly calendar in front of you too, so Killingly and Woodstock are our primary buses, where we're sending our buses to. So if we were to look at, Woodstock doesn't have any PD day in January. And then, so Killingly,
Stars are staff development, so
Yeah.
they're
they have
doing
it on Tuesday.
on Tuesday again.
So like when we had no school, they had PD. So they didn't this week.
At the very least, we should try to coordinate with one school.
Right.
Seems like.
And if we look at the 14th, so Killingly has early release. So if we moved it to the 14th, it wouldn't.
It doesn't
matter because it's already.
We'd almost be better
Yeah.
off to go with
The 21st.
the 21st, yeah.
I think that the discussion last year with some of the parents was they liked that Friday, but I think that I think we split it. I think there was one day where we overlapped with somebody, and then there was another where we moved it. And part of it is how many Fridays are we going to have PD? So we have one Tuesday PD. Is that right? The 5th, November 5th. So now we would have 2 as opposed to 2 Friday PDs. So,
And I think some of the conversation about that splitting the PD, like having, with PD and the holiday, like having the Friday and the Monday, is if you've got people that are worried about work time. So this is additional kid coverage in the middle of the year. Sometimes it's easier if you have like the Friday, okay, I can make up a couple hours there so I don't completely lose the week's pay. And then the Monday, maybe work. So it makes it maybe a little bit easier if you're splitting them into 2 paid weeks. If
Two
parents
small
are
weeks instead of one
really long week, like it might help some families with that balancing of things.
Why don't you have that conversation with them?
I know theirs isn't approved yet, so there's still that possibility. And so again, nothing really has changed. March 26th, early dismissal for conferences. And then we go into April, so, the Good Friday, for those who celebrate that, is on April 10th. And then there's the week off for Easter or that April vacation. So we'd have the 10th off and then the following week. Last year, we had agreed in our calendar discussion to say that if we missed a certain number of days, so if you look at that box on the right-hand side, snow days, 5 or more snow days by January 31st will result in school being held on the following days. So on the 6th snow day, we take that Friday of April vacation away. On the 7th snow day, if all of those got piled up before January, we'd start taking some of those days
If
away.
we make it another week, we won't do any of these things.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
We won't have 5 or more.
Yes, exactly.
But what if we have,
Besides
what
the
if we have a whole bunch of snow days in February?
School canceled, school canceled.
Well, there's just not enough,
cold.
there's not enough days to recover. That's really ends up being. And when you get to February, so teachers or professionals are planning on vacation.
So
And
they've
so,
already scheduled their April
Yeah.
vacation.
yeah,
So
so
they'll just have to do them in June.
that's right. So that's
But our
kind of.
concern is like when if like the year that we had the 2 days in October that we already were behind, you know, that like we're already, you know, it's January 2nd and we're already like 6 days in and like, oh my God, we're, you know,
We
haven't
better
really got
say
to
it
winter.
than not.
Yeah, if we plan, then at least people have an idea of like, okay, if we're going to have to take, you know, days back because we've had excessive snow, ice, whatever, school closures, at least they have a mental idea of like, okay, we'll try and book it towards this side of the weekend versus that side of the weekend and vice versa.
Now, see, Killingly has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 early release days. Those are PD days for them.
Yes.
Is there any value to a half day for PD? Because if we did a couple of those, we would not have to extend the calendar.
Well, teacher work year, according to their contract, is 186 days. So they come to work 186 days. And so if
We have to amend the contract. Gotcha.
they probably wouldn't want to give up a few days' pay to have some early releases. I don't know, I'm just guessing. We just negotiated
Like,
that
I'm like,
contract.
just finish that contract.
But, so that ends up being part of the issue.
That was,
So where you can see Killingly's last day looks like June. What is their last day, the 24th, or is it the 19th?
looks like the 19th.
Or that's graduation.
Is it 15?
We are, obviously, you can see that I think the bold is their board days. Yeah, that's what the 24th. So their last day might be the 15th. Ours is on the 12th. So where we are, that's.
I like ours much better.
It's really the same as what we had this year. Our last, well, we just extended it by a day, but our last day this year was scheduled to be the 12th.
Awesome.
So there was some discussion about changing the February, or the January PD. Does anybody want to?
You should leave it because it aligns with the others.
I like the January better than, I mean, we already have 2 days off in February. Like, I hear what you're saying, May, about that, but
Then it makes one really long week for.
you know, February is the vacation time, that's not PD time versus, you know, those are, you know, so like if people want to, then they're.
Right, well, and we used to have February vacation, people would
Right.
plan little trips, but
Right.
now it's just a long weekend.
And it doesn't really save us on buses whether we're Friday or Tuesday because Woodstock doesn't.
They're
have
both,
PD
they're
day.
both took.
I think keep it in January. Personally.
And should we consider moving it to the 21st, no, because of that whole long,
Okay.
short weekend? Gotcha. All right.
Good. Any other discussion?
Mm,
Can I just make, if election day is professional development day?
Yep.
Can we put that like in there that it's
Yep.
professional development?
you can.
Because it's a different color.
I know, I gotta check the colors on that. Thank
I
you.
didn't know if that, but just so that,
Yes. Thank you. And
I just had it listed as, wasn't that, the Good Friday was part of that, right?
Okay.
I don't think it really matters, but, it's one of those, why are we taking the 17th of April backwards?
Right.
Well, it's because Easter is on the 12th, so that's why we're.
Yeah.
Any other comments or updates or questions? I would entertain a motion to approve the school 1920 calendar as presented with slight modifications.
So moved.
Joan, Lee, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Very good. Ratification of the BEA contract. So the negotiations committee, we had already reported last time, that we went through mediation with the BEA, and the BEA, apparently, ICE does not hold them back. Met today?
Yeah.
Oh, today, okay.
It's afternoon.
Okay, so ICE did hold you back a little bit, but you guys,
We made it
you
happen.
guys rock.
We made it happen.
It was cold yesterday.
It was not as cold as Monday though.
It was cold.
Monday was frigid. And so we have the BEA contract that the group ratified, so you're all good to go.
Yeah.
Everybody's good to go, so we will we post that at the town.
So, if anybody wants to know what the changes are, you've got a track change copy in your folder. And then, we can explain any changes that were made to the contract, but, as long as you ratify and agree to move forward, to agree to this contract, then we would, post it, yes, we have signature.
Anybody have any questions? Motion to accept the ratified contract?
Mhm.
Okay, Fay makes a motion,
Second.
Joan seconds. Further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
I missed the first.
May.
Thank you.
Okay. Grade 8 class trip information.
So in your folder, you can see there's a permission slip or some general information about the trip. Excuse me. The 8th grade group is busy on their planning. I think we have an 8th grade parent here. So we have, initially, we weren't sure if we'd have enough participation to actually run the trip, but it seems like they're coming in. And so I had asked, I have 2 copies. This is last year's agenda and kind of guidelines. They don't have this year's yet, but it's very similar to last year's trip. It's a trip that's been pretty consistent over the years. If anybody wants to look at this, I can pass it down. And so I just want to make you aware of it. That
Why would there suddenly not be enough interest? Doesn't it always been popular?
I think it's popular since the cost
The cost
is,
is a little
yeah.
expensive.
yeah, and this year the cost seems to be higher. And I'm not quite sure. I think it's a larger group, and so they're having a hard time
Fitting on the buses.
finding
It was a different hotel.
yeah. It's more expensive. So, yeah, so another 8th grade parent in here, parent of an 8th grader. So they had to find a different hotel because they couldn't.
It's a bigger group.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
But they did, the agent that works with the Brooklyn Public Schools was able to find that. And so it really is an educational trip. And so the cost went up. The school does support a large number of families in small to medium ways. They are able to support families. So there's been great participation from parent volunteers that want to attend. So a pretty significant number of parent volunteers, so they're real pleased about that too. So I just want to make sure you knew that this was coming.
No, it's nice to see, because we never get any information. See the pictures at graduation.
Yeah.
This would be a great, project to collaborate on because there are so many schools that do this. But,
Yeah.
and are they all using different agencies in terms of the
Probably.
rates and?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you.
Okay.
I guarantee you've got 5 districts of
That's
8th grade that are
exactly
coming,
right.
then give us a breakdown.
Makes sense to me.
Stuff.
So it's really just for your information. I wanted to make sure you knew that it's out there and I think people are excited about it. It's quite a commitment though. When you think about the staff that go on these trips,
Oh, yeah.
and,
It's huge.
leave everyone behind and they have to make arrangements for their dogs and their kids and their parents and all people, all their other responsibilities. It's a nice, I just recognize that it's a real commitment from
It's a long
our
ride
staff.
too.
It is a long ride.
Yes, but the commentary on the ride is very always interesting to read. What happens on the trip from the parent perspective.
That's a great thing to do.
So,
Kind of like their lives.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
No crying.
You'll probably hear more about it in the future. So.
All right. Any other business that,
I just have one other, which is part of the committee reports that we skipped over, and that was CAVE. And I just wanted to say, this morning, Area 4, we hosted the legislative breakfast. And thank you to those of you that could join me. I appreciate that. I know it was early and it's difficult when you're trying to get your kids ready for school and get to work and do all that needed to be, but I was very happy to see that of the 14 towns that are in my CAVE Area 4 district, I think all but one were represented. And it was very nice to see that we had 2 senators come out and be a part of this, as well as 4 state representatives. I think the discussion was hearty and good. I always like that it gives, the Board of Ed's members, as well as the superintendents and the board chairs, an opportunity to express what's hot on their minds in terms of education. There's a lot of talk in terms of topics on consolidating districts and the change from Malloy to Lamont, and the threshold being 2,000 students to 1,000 students and what that looks like. Of course, ECF funding was hot as usual, and the MDR issue. And I think that, I see this grow every year. It was nice to see that we had the representation that we had. About 45 people, I think, were here. I received a lot of really nice emails. So I just wanted to say thanks for hanging in there with me on this, and, continue when you see, Pat Boyd, who seems to be everywhere and know everyone, or Ann Dauphiné, or Rick Hayes now from Putnam, continue expressing what's important, continue sending those emails to your legislators about what's important.
And be specific.
Be very specific, right? Because we don't know what this means. This is nebulous.
What area does he
But this is nebulous on purpose.
What area does he represent?
Who, Doug Dubitsky?
Not
What towns does he have?
He's
South, right?
Yes.
Oh, so not that far.
Scotland.
He's not too far away, no.
Scotland?
West of there.
Yeah.
But we
But
had
I
the
mean-
best breakfast.
Well, we did.
By far, we had the best breakfast
Yes.
by multiple people who attended.
Which was
multiple
the
breakfasts.
exact same breakfast that we had at the EastCon legislative breakfast. Oh, by the way.
But we do
that's
better
okay.
somehow.
Yeah, we
It
do.
was cooked.
No, I thought it was good. I think in terms of this, how do you come up with 5, 6, 7 things that are your legislative priorities? And the one thing I would take away from this is I think there is absolutely value in doing this earlier.
I do
Before
too.
bills start coming out, like, let's do this in December, like EastCon does theirs in December. Maybe even do it together with them
Because
some way.
it's
if
too
it could
late to
be-
submit any bills. They have to ask.
Yeah, like why? I mean, what did we talk about today for next year? It's always this, it seems to be the same general things anyway that all revolve around money. So, which we don't have any of, and
There
we
isn't
won't be
any.
getting
You
any
remember
more.
that? There isn't any.
So yeah, anyway, that's that.
But
So,
I have to say, as being a couple of these breakfasts in now, I think that the conversation gets deeper and richer, and with the more
It was definitely better.
representation that we had from, the legislation, that I think that back and forth of realizing that, we are kind of an anomaly on the eastern side of the state of things that we deal with in the smaller towns, the smaller districts, and, what works for Hartford is not going to work for us, and really, understanding that we're
yeah, and I think.
And that's on
the-
everything, not just education.
Right,
No,
and the
yeah.
bigger thing I think for them as legislators are obviously, you've got Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford, you've got the larger areas that have single representation, where then you've got, our state senator, our senators and our state representatives that are responsible for 10, 14, 16 towns, so, and it's who makes the most noise that gets the attention, so. That's all.
And I think kudos to you for putting on a.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very nice,
It's
yeah.
been
Thanks, it was
very well
fun.
monitored and, you know,
Thanks.
you give people enough time to talk and cut people off and.
Nicely done.
And
The way I creep in on them,
Well,
like.
you know, but you always tend to get the same 6 or 8 people that want to speak.
Oh, yes.
So you did a good job of
Well,
making
thank
sure
you.
all the towns were, you know, had a chance to speak to. So.
Thank you. Thanks.
Anything else that I missed? Oh, sorry, I wasn't.
No, it's no problem.
I just wanted to
Say thank you for coming.
It was good. It was very good. I'm very impressed. Always impressed. It was good breakfast too. Nothing else I missed? Public comment? Okay. So, we have an executive session on the, what are we on there? On the agenda. So we are going to be going into a discussion concerning an attorney-client communication regarding steps for commissioning a financial audit. Possible action concerning an attorney-client communication regarding steps for commissioning a financial audit is possible. We are going to be inviting in Superintendent Buell to the executive session. So I would entertain that motion, and I'll give you the actual written.
Someone.
Joe makes the motion. Melissa seconds. All in favor? Aye. Alpha?
The person is second, sorry.
Joan and then Melissa.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
It's on there.
That's what you needed another minute.
I don't have enough, no.
Half the day from.
Wait, I gotta make sure I said, oh.
Once you guys wrap up.
Until we have to do school call.
Sorry. I took you guys the wrong place the last time.
Right.